done the earthworks, and there's the reason, as quoted throughout the document. Going back to where Councillor Ward is dead right, we don't have the authority to do that, but we do have the authority on the in the original permit to say no, because we don't think it's necessary in that area. And to be fair, there's a lot of things missing from this report. Well, one is that all around the world, electric motorbikes have been introduced into racing, and they've been introduced to try and use them on tracks that are already available. And the quandary of reports has been that electric bikes create a problem. They can't be used on a normal track. That's a reality. And everywhere you see electric bikes raced, they actually have a special provision because of fire. So my issue is not the electric bike. I want to clarify that. But we do have a duty of care in regional areas to make sure we don't create a risk that could potentially create a fire. And the facts are that all over Europe, that's exactly what's happened. And if you go and watch any YouTube video, whatever you want to do, even the electric Grand Prix, you'll note that when a motorcyclist comes off an electric motorbike, the first thing they do is have to remove the rider from the area, and then they cover the bike because they can't put the fire out. That's a reality. That's an engineering fact of electric bikes. So I can't reject this on the basis that it's a bike track, albeit that I see in here, if we approve this tonight, on page, I'll tell you the page, I've got a couple of reasonings. On page 23, it actually mentions motorbikes. So if this was approved, you could actually use a motorbike. Not that we had the authority to stop it anyway. So let's understand that. But there is another issue that comes up within the requirements of this, and it goes back to what Councillor Sullivan asked about the drainage, that whilst we accept that we can't interfere with the waterways of what's going on here, you know, in terms of if we have to wet the track, we are now introducing another element that's not natural to our drainage system. And none of that, there's no report on that in this entire report. I've got a report here that every third word's about a bike, and the request for the permit is about earthworks. So we've got two issues here. We either have a report that's not relevant to what the problem is. We have a duty of care to make sure that we don't set fire to the budding of the landscape. And looking at the pictures and the thing, I don't know how you're going to water the track. I don't know how you get a vehicle down there. So from where I sit, yes, I understand we only give a permission to do the earthworks, but had the permit came through when it was supposed to, it would have needed a reason. And based on the report that's sitting in front of us, there is the reason. Now, if that's the reason, it has to be rejected and resubmitted for what it is. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm looking at the document in front of me, and I do hear what Councillor Tatchell is saying. But it's been repeatedly said it is the earthworks associated with the private bike track. I look at, and my concern was around the dust concern, as one of the speakers pointed out. Condition 3 and 6 covered that situation for me in the dust situation. So as I see it, I agree with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Minari.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the difference when we get briefed on these applications, and it's not until the night that we hear often a lot more information or lack of information. And I think tonight I was probably needing more information from tonight. So I'm not really feeling that comfortable about moving forward. We take these decisions unbelievably seriously. They have detrimental impact to many residents, and I never will never make those decisions on a whim. So tonight, I will not be supporting it. I don't think it's ready. Apologies to the planners. But yes, that's where I sit. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. If there's anyone else, Councillor Bingham, you speaking for or against?
Speaking against the motion, Mr Mayor. It's never a good thing to come to this chamber and be confused and have concerns raised. So I'm not comfortable making that decision tonight. But also, and I'm not going to repeat everything Councillor Tadgell said because a lot of what came out of his mouth is exactly what I was thinking. I'm not prepared to grant a permit based on a handshake. We talk about, yes, the permits are just about earthworks, but as Councillor Tadgell rightly put out, all throughout our report talks about the use. Clearly, we're talking about use of bikes here. And talking about fire, there's a bit of a crisis going on at the moment that, a lot of house fires and things like that are started with lithium batteries, e-bikes and e-scooters. So I don't see a fire break around this track. That raises a concern with me. But yeah, there is no way I'm in a position to support this motion. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan, are you for or against?
Could I just say,
I know a motion if I can.
Mr Mayor, I was just going to suggest, and I think Councillor Tatchell is of the same mind, that if this matter were to be deferred, I would flag that an alternate motion would be to defer this. That's all I'm suggesting, putting it out there. Thank you.
Councillor Kerr, you for or against?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm voting along the lines with Councillor Ward because the way I see it, this is a permit, a retrospective permit for earthworks. It's irrelevant at the moment of how it's being used. So going through the officer's report, I can see no reason why it should be rejected. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak for or against? Well, we have a mover and a seconder, so we'll give you a closing argument.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I suppose I want to stress again, I was not unsympathetic to the objectors. However, I've been a councillor long enough to know that if we reject an application for reasons other than our planning scheme, they get overturned in 5 minutes in VCAT. The track was built for something, and Councillor Bingham is absolutely right. There's been house fires in Moorabool and elsewhere because of lithium batteries, but I don't see why we should punish the applicant because there's been house fires caused by lithium batteries. We're not going to ban lithium batteries. The area of land is located within an area comprised of dwellings dispersed on a farming zone. So the use of motorbikes or e-bikes is permissible in a farming zone. We can't debate that. We can't debate that. Enforcement action carried out for works has been undertaken for the works taken without planning approval. The applicant built the track. Now, you build a track for something. Otherwise, you just ride around the parcel of land and you wear a track out for private recreational use. Now, every young boy or girl that grows up in a farming land or rural land or regional land is going to ride their bike in and amongst trees on their land. It's part of growing up. There is no imported fill material. The Water Catchment Authority, Central Highlands Water, has consented to the application. We've put conditions on for dust suppression, and there are permit conditions that relate to the controlled sediment runoff and dust emissions. So there is absolutely no planning reason to reject this, none whatsoever. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So obviously we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? All those against? It's lost. I'm against.
Okay. Mr Mayor, with your indulgence, as I flagged earlier, I would move an alternate I flagged that this matter be deferred.
Yep.
Thank you.
So you're moving the motion?
Yes.
Yep. Seconder, Councillor Thatchell. All those in favour? Anyone opposed? Carried. All those in favour? Carried. Moving along, item 9.3, earthworks, including construction of screening, moulds and vegetation removal, 14 trees at 682 Glenmore Road, Rowsley. We have one written submission in front of us from Ian McGee, and we have 7 speakers. First up is Wendy Gillespie. They understand.
Good evening, councillors.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make a bit of an objection here. We live next door to the proposed quarry site. We're concerned that the company that has applied for the permit won't abide by the guidelines of these permits. Past behaviour has proven that they feel they can operate under their own rules. They have already been doing works on site for approximately 8 months with no permits until they were issued with a stop work order. I am still at a loss as to why they were allowed to operate for so long without a permit. We also don't understand how they could bring in contaminated soil as they were not supposed to bring
Order,
anything on
Mr Mayor,
site.
this is not...
It also makes us wonder if all these loads were documented were the soil, where the soil came from, and if it was it even truthful? The bund walls were built not on the quarry site, but on farming land. That quarry has never been a part of the farming portion of that land. We have had to contend with noise, dust, asbestos, diesel spills, theft and arrogance, along with more. Their practices are deceitful and dishonest. They think that no one can challenge them.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. We're debating the merits of the application, not
Can
personalities.
just stick to the facts that are of...
Okay. And also there is a concern about traffic control, water and sediment runoff, and removal of unauthorised trees.
Okay. Any questions, councillors? Thank you.
Thank you.
We now call up Kim Anastasi.
I will just preface this by saying that we have documentation, my husband and I, to back up everything that we claim tonight. So Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors, thank you for your time. For 14 months, my family have lived with the ramifications of unpermitted earthworks 50 metres from our home of 21 years. Now, major new earthworks are proposed just 17 metres from our bedrooms, posing serious risks to us, our neighbours and the environment. At that distance, the impacts would be extreme. In my view, the application was not properly made. The proponent appears to be attempting to avoid Earth Resources Regulation, ERR, involvement, while setting up a kaolin clay mine through fragmented council permits, almost certainly because insufficient separation distances from dwellings would preclude a mining licence being granted. I believe this is classic project segmentation, as the proponent currently has 3 applications: vegetation removal for an industrial crossover, which is being finalised, screening mounds and clay extraction, that together appear to form one mining project. Assessing these components in isolation appears inconsistent with VCAT's integrated proposal principle, which cautions against piecemeal assessment that prevents proper consideration of the ultimate use. Under the Mineral Resources Sustainable Development Act 1990, MRSDA, kaolin clay is a mineral, not a stone, so any extraction constitutes mining, not quarrying. Therefore, the Code of Practice for small quarries does not apply. The governing legislation is the MRSDA, meaning there is simply no way to avoid ERR involvement. Work done to date resembles a hard stand, haul roads, screening mounds, overburden stripping and clay stockpiling, and appears to be development of a mine and its infrastructure. Consequently, all three applications should be assessed as one under clause 5208-1 of the Mirrabul Planning Scheme, which states a permit is required to use and develop land for earth and energy resources industry. This requires a mining licence and a statutorily endorsed work plan from ERR or proof of exemption. There is no record of either, as confirmed in the Planning Officer's report. Interestingly, I found that the property is currently advertised for sale on 3 major real estate sites. If you approve these mounds tonight and the site is sold tomorrow, who will be responsible for complying with council conditions for decades to come? During unpermitted works, we endured relentless noise, beepers, horns, clanging buckets and engines, often starting before 7 a.m. and as early as 6:20, waking the entire family and disturbing my son's work from home. This has worsened my insomnia and prevented recovery sleep, while vibrations from heavy equipment rattled our home and belongings. To my knowledge, no noise monitoring has occurred on site. If these permits pave the way for full-scale mining, the noise won't be temporary. It will be a brutal long-term reality for our family and neighbours and displace further wildlife from the area. For over a year, dust has been a health concern. Additional dust from new, closer works will further aggravate my husband's asthma, which for the first time ever requires daily puffer use. The World Health Organisation reports that breathing dust and fine particles is associated with increased mortality from all causes, cardiovascular disease, respiratory disease and lung cancer. With existing exposed clay and calinosis and silicosis are real risks. The Cancer Council notes silica dust is 100 times smaller than a grain of sand, and there's no evidence to suggest a safe level of silica dust exposure. To my knowledge, no dust monitoring has occurred on site. I fear the consequences of what we have already breathed in, from visible dust plumes crossing our property and invisible particles permeating the air. These activities likely breached the obligations of the General Environment Duty and have now changed how we live, harmed our amenity, stripped our rural character, forced us to purchase bottled water for drinking and caused significant stress, particularly concerning due to my adrenal insufficiency, which makes stress life-threatening to sufferers. The new earthbound walls will be incredibly claustrophobic and exacerbate all our problems. Councillors, please refuse this application to protect our health, community and environment from years of avoidable and unnecessary harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Tatchell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you. I've just got a couple of quick ones. How long have you lived there?
21 years.
21 years. And the other one, you said in your statement that a permit wouldn't be issued on that place. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Sorry. Yeah, it's my belief, you're talking about a mining licence?
Yes.
Yeah, it's my belief that a mining licence would not be allowed there. And yes, I am aware there was a former kaolin clay mine there over, I think the permit was issued in 1989 for 15 years. Conditions have changed a great deal since the 90s, and we're well aware now of all the health risks associated with things like this. So the Mineral Resources Sustainable Development Act designates that any mining-related infrastructure, not just the clay face, it includes haul roads, it includes hard stands, things like that, they have to be 125 metres from the eaves of a home, and currently the haul road is approximately 45 to 50 metres away, and that haul road is mining infrastructure, and I do believe we're within the 125 metres of the actual clay face as well.
Right, thank you. Were you aware that there was a permit issued in October 25 for vegetation removal in the environmental significance overlay to support the construction of a new internal driveway? Were you aware
Yes,
of that?
my understanding is that the application was purely for the removal of the vegetation, and it was in preparation for, and the reason for doing so was preparation for the industrial crossover, which an industrial crossover can't stand alone. It must, by nature, attach to a road that is for industry, so an industrial road. And the haul road is 90% already built. They may need to deviate based on, because they were aiming for Davison's Lane where they cut through the fence and tried to create an illegal crossover. So I believe that they'll have to detour that existing Hall Road a little bit to go out where the new crossover. Well, as far as I know, the vegetation has been approved, and it's my understanding that business or infrastructure have to approve the actual crossover, not the planning department. So I'm not sure the status of that one. But again, an industrial crossover must lead to an industrial road. It stands to reason.
Just another question, just while I've got you, because you sound very knowledgeable on what you're doing there. I can say that.
Thank you.
Are you aware of any core sampling that was done there for a pilot permit on this?
Sorry, I missed the question.
Any core sampling that was done on this particular property prior to all of this happening? So are you aware of any sampling that was done on a pilot? Or?
No, not.
Okay.
You're talking about the proponent's land?
Yeah.
No, not that it's been made publicly available to us.
Yeah, you understand, we don't give out mining licences.
Yeah,
so
yep.
And we wouldn't get that information until...
Yeah, no, I'm saying that there's no point,
I was just
granting
looking at your big
this.
pile there, I thought you might add something.
No, I've just got everything to back everything up, but yeah, I'm just saying that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Well,
No, that's okay. No, that's all right. No, you answered it anyway, so
yep,
that's fine.
okay, no
Good
worries.
idea.
Thank you.
Councillor Berry.
With councillor. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mrs Anastasi. I just want you to just repeat when you were talking about build starting 17 metres from your home.
You came away from the TV.
Oh, hello.
It's been a long year.
Were you talking about, so the 17 metres then from your property, were you talking about the proposed mounds?
Yes, the proposed screening mounds are proposed to be 3 metres tall with a base of 8 metres wide, and they are proposed literally just the other side of our boundary fence, and the start of those screening mounds is 17 metres from our front door, our bedrooms, and we have a ranch-style home, so it's long. So the whole front of the house is literally 17 metres from these proposed walls. Our boundary is approximately 16 and the walls are approximately 17 from the front of our house.
Okay. Thank you. Mr Mayor, I just then have a question for officers. So on page 41, it talks about the mounds, to construct the mounds at 3 metres, up to 3 metres high on the boundary perimeter, which Mrs Anastasi has mentioned is only 17 metres from her house. Is that within regulations?
So through the chair, we're looking at this as an earthworks application, so not related to a mine activity. So the earthworks could be located anywhere within the tidal boundary, and that's what we've got to assess.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a couple of questions, but I suppose, thank you, Kim, for your presentation. I suppose I'll go back to your final comments that you mentioned over the course of 14 months. It's changed how you lived, harmed your amenity, forced you to purchase bottled water for drinking and caused significant stress. And you talked about noise of the beepers at 6:20 in the morning. I know this must be created some stress and anxiety for you over the last 14 months, but could you, I suppose, spend a minute or two to sum up how it's changed your lives and what it's done to you and your health and well-being? Because we often talk about applications coming in front of us and we've got to consider them on their merits, but as other councillors have often said, there is a human factor to consider in this.
Sure. It's completely changed our lives. We no longer use the front yard to play with our dogs. We no longer go out there. It's literally to get in the cars and leave. It's been incredibly stressful, researching all the legislation, trying to work out what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, the fear of the dust that we're breathing in, the water, like I said, the water that we, I don't know if I mentioned it, but the water that we collect for everything, we're on tank water, is 17 metres from these 3 metre high earth mound walls that go the entire 182 metres, I think it is, length of our property and continue on down to Glenmore Road. So everything you can think of. There's been days that I've not wanted to get out of bed because I know that I'm facing the fight to keep my home the way it is. It's everything. And as I mentioned, stress can literally kill me. So I'm doing what I can to manage my stress and stay alive.
Mr Mayor, if I could ask a question of officers. It was mentioned that a permit's required to use and develop land for earth and energy resources industries, and it was mentioned that this requires a mining licence. Could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the extraction of kaolin, which is the resource on this site, would require planning permission. And subsequent to the report, there has been a recent plan application lodged for clay extraction, which will be assessed on its own merits.
So for clarity, Mr Mayor, there was a previous licence in 1989 for 15 years. That's no longer valid. Was the rehabilitation of the land done at the completion of that previous licence?
So through the chair, our discussions with ERR was that the previous works approval that was issued required rehabilitation to the site, but those rehabilitation works were not undertaken when that previous mining operation ceased.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. Next up, Santino Anastasi.
Thank you for your time, councillors. I live just 50 metres from some of the newly built infrastructure and 17 metres from the location of one of the proposed earth mound walls. These are some of the reasons I request denial of the permit, but there are many more. 602 Glenmore Road is zoned for brown coal activities, not clay mining, as confirmed in the statutory planner's report, and the earth mound walls only serve a purpose in the context of a quarry or mining operation. Legislation has become stricter over the last 30 years because the risks to health and the environment are far better understood. The long abandoned and unlicensed site doesn't come close to providing today's required separation distances from mining and infrastructure, which are 125 metres under the Mineral Resources Act for mines and 500 metres under the EPA standard for quarries. The EPA's buffer standard was doubled just last year to protect communities like ours, and the site's separation distance from homes is grossly deficient. No permit conditions can fix that. The site's activity has already caused significant dust and sediment issues. I've just got a sample of some of the where sediment has run off to our site and created a crust along the surface. Approving an additional 28,000 cubic metres of fill on top of the 34,000 already dumped will make it far worse. Past dust suppression efforts were ineffective and never implemented outside of work hours, at night, on Sundays, or since the June stop work order. Given the vast area now stripped of vegetation, I believe meaningful dust control is now impractical due to the volume of water, time and money needed. We can't be denied clean air. Further works will worsen the threat to our sole source of drinking water as rainwater is collected in our tank just metres from the proposed 3 metre high earth mounds. Any activity that risks contamination or damages the system is an unacceptable interference with a critical service, and we can't be denied drinking water. Workers at the site frequently peered down on our property and yard, leaving us with a constant and unsettling sense of being watched and robbing us of quiet enjoyment of our home. We can't be denied our privacy. The proposed 62,000 cubic metres of clean fill sourced entirely from the applicant's own operations with no independent testing raises serious concerns. While EPA guidelines allow trace contaminants like arsenic or heavy metals in clean fill, these thresholds are only considered safe for low-risk settings such as industrial sites. Residential areas and farmland face risks of leaching, dust and groundwater contamination. And again, we've researched all of this, we have all the documentation. Without third-party testing, we're left trusting a self-audited assessment for material placed directly uphill from our homes excuse me, and Parwin Creek. We've already observed what appears to be kaolin sediment washing into our yard, as I mentioned, and likely into the creek after rains. In March 2025, the applicant publicly stated online, we're running within any and all permit requirements currently. Yet Council's stop work order on 20 June 25 and the absence of a mining licence, as confirmed in the planner's report, directly contradicts that claim. This discrepancy should be considered carefully when evaluating any future claims or assurances, given the concerns raised by the community and council. Today, I would ask for councillors' support in these critical actions. 1, maintain the stop work order until the matter of the unlicensed mining activity is fully resolved and a compliant rehabilitation plan is approved by Earth Resource Regulation. 2, refuse the permit application as recommended by the statutory planner's report. 3, require an immediate independent EPA audit of the material already dumped at the site to verify that it's safe for residents and Parliament Creek. 4, require the applicant to fund an independent report detailing how the material will be safely removed, including continuous dust suppression, real-time monitoring and revegetation. And lastly, order the prompt removal of the material because dust blows into our home every dry day and sediment washes into our yard and towards Parliament Creek every wet day. Given that VCAT rarely overturns a council's Development Assessment Committee recommendations, and now that the applicant fully grasps the impact on residents and the insurmountable hurdle posed by buffer zone requirements, I urge him to demonstrate integrity by publicly withdrawing all 3 of his permit applications tonight. Councillors, please refuse this application to avoid harms and protect our rights to clean air, clean drinking water and privacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Santino. You held up the jar there. How often would there be runoff into your yard from the site?
It actually only started like recently, and I don't know whether that's because something overflowed at the clay face, like there may have been a pool of water or something that overflowed, and that just happened recently, or it's worked its way down the hill over time. What we've noticed just recently also is in the bottom of our dam, the colour of the dirt at the bottom of the base of the dam, which is now dry at the moment, is much whiter than all of the surrounding colour of the dirt. So it's getting halfway down our property, and I totally believe it will be getting down to Parliament Creek.
Thank you. So it's running down the hill. You're getting sediment running down into your land, your driveway.
Yes.
And Kim mentioned you get sediment landing on the roof and running into your tanks.
Dust, yeah.
Mr Mayor, if I could ask a question of officers. Santino mentioned the potential impact of, I think you mentioned 28,000 cubic metres of fill potentially being dumped onto the site on top of the 34,000 cubic metres already dumped on site. Now, I don't know if that's correct or not. However, I'd like to know where the 34,000 cubic metres dumped on site came from, and was it tested to see what was in it?
So through the chair, don't know the origin of all that material, but the second part of your question is about testing. There were test results provided by the applicant, which were then reviewed by EPA, and as stated in the papers, EPA reviewed those results and confirmed it was clean fill, so therefore did not contain contaminants to pose a human risk.
Can I say something on that?
No.
34,000 cubic metres, we don't know where it came from, but the EPA said it was safe, but that was dumped without a permit, if I'm correct?
The initial screen mounds that we've got at the moment, so like it's half complete, has been, sourced from different sites, but have been done without, without that, I suppose, rigorous assessment.
My last question, Mr Mayor, is Santino mentioned buffer zones. For a kaolin mine, is there a buffer zone, and is it 125, 500 or 17 metres?
So through the chair, the application for clay extraction will be referred to ERR. They're the responsible authority, so they will give advice as far as work approval permissions, which is a separate statutory process, and they'll also advise about particular buffers in place in accordance with their legislation, and they'll provide that back to council.
Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A question to the planners. The soil samples that were given to the EPA for analysis, were they collected by us or collected by the applicant?
They were collected by the applicant, but the EPA did request certain conditions, so they actually put the thing out what they wanted, and they did, as I said, review those results. A
supplementary question, Mr Mayor. were the samples collected under the supervision of the EPA?
So through the chair, I can't confirm whether they were actually observed during that period of time, but they have provided response to the results.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Minari.
Thank you. My question is for officers. You know, this application is up for, recommended for refusal, but whatever happens tonight, my question is around the stop work notice that has been issued. Is that a continual stop notice until such time as what?
So through the chair, the applicant is seeking permission for additional earthworks to be undertaken. That's why the stop work order is in place. In the event of a refusal being issued, then they would be required to remove those works.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and just in case I'll foreshadow a motion, but probably won't be required, but I just want to foreshadow it as a matter of process. The applicant was advised at the time of the rehab works to a non-operational quarry that didn't require a planning permit. So basically this was brought about by a breach, by the works that were done or the soil that was put in there was deemed to be excessive or not required in line with the work commitment or the spirit of not requiring a permit. Sorry about the voice. So I believe in here, I noted that the EPA requirement was 500 metres, but that was sent through by one of the objectors. But the officer's response didn't quantify or clarify whether that was correct or not. So I think that's subjective at best, but I think we probably need to establish that. I'm just trying to work through why this is here, because I think that's an important part of what's going on here, because should a permit be passed, we don't want to end up in a position where we compromise ourselves in terms of how we move forward should a permit be passed. So I'm just being very careful. So that's why I probably need those questions answered. Thank you.
Yeah. Any further questions, councillors? Thank you. Next up, we call Desiree Norte. Yeah, obviously the Ian McGee written submission is in front of you. Yeah? It's been distributed, as we said at the start. The green light. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you very much for your time this evening. My name is Desiree Norchi and I live at 201 Paces Lane in Roseley. I would like to submit a further objection to this permit application, further to my written application, objection that I wrote on the 17th of September. I'd like to elaborate on my statement in that written objection about the detrimental effect on the wildlife in the area. Further to that, I would like to refer to the Moorabool planning scheme, which is on the DTP website, which has recently been updated on the 25th of November. There are several clauses within this 1,000+ page document referring to maintaining the landscape as well as the habitat of fauna within the area. There are several such references with particular reference on page 51, where it says all planning needs to consider this to support the ecosystem, including habitats. Further on page 53, it goes on to say taking into account fragmentation of habitat of fauna. It goes on page 128 with regards to the landscape and neighbourhood character, that all development must protect and enhance the natural environment. Further on page 333, the impact of the use of development on fauna, the need to protect and enhance biodiversity on the area, including the need to retain faunal habitat. There's several such further references. I understand this is an application for earthworks. However, as was mentioned by the previous objector, the earthworks has further intention insofar as kaolin extraction. I understand that is not what this application is for. However, allowing these earthworks to go ahead will affect the environment, and the noise and dust and blasting and dust that will come as a result of these earthworks, I would like to lodge my objection. The reason for bringing up the habitat of the fauna is there are koalas in this area. I have 3 photographs to support that. They are on my property. It is estimated that on the 4 eastern states of Australia where koalas still live in the wild, there are only approximately 150,000 per state. I object that this earthworks, this application will have a detrimental effect on the few koalas that remain in our area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Thank you. Next up is Alan Haulier.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and officers of Mirrabooka Council. Thank you for the privilege of speaking at this committee meeting. My name is Alan Hollier and I represent Earth Lodge Mining, and I'm a compliance and management consultant offering services to help them align what they're doing with what is required. Firstly, to align the discussion this evening, I'd like to bring everyone's attention to the fact that all we're talking about is construction of screening mounds and removing of 14 trees for construction of those screening mounds, nothing else. Anything else apart from what we're talking about is irrelevant tonight. And comments about mining and road traffic have nothing to do with this application. Under the guidelines of special use zoning, there is no permit required for construction of screening mounds. There is no design requirements or buffer zone requirements for screening mounds at all. It doesn't exist. And if we have a property which is zoned special use, whether it's special use zone 1 or 2, it's irrelevant to the guidelines because the guidelines simply state that there is no requirement to control the screening mounds in the sense of engineering design and buffer zones from properties. The reason this permit has been held up now for over 200 days is because initially, rather than disturb the site, Earth Lodge Mining imported clean fill. And to satisfy a question that was asked earlier about clean fill, Earth Lodge Mining is legally able to transport clean fill, and to obtain a clean fill certificate for that, the clean fill certificates are provided by the generator of the soil, not by Earth Lodge Mining. Earth Lodge Mining is an arm of the Starbuck group of companies, and they simply transport soil that other people load in their trucks. They will not transport it without a clean fill certificate or a geologist assessment certificate under guidelines approved by the EPA. So claims about illegal importation of uncontrolled fill is not relevant because it's not true. Complaints about importing contaminated soil are equally irrelevant. They're not true because every truckload of material that comes into the site has a clean fill certificate or a geologist report with it satisfying the EPA's guidelines. And when we were asked to supply that information about the soil that has been imported, we supplied those clean fill certificates and geologist reports. They were reviewed and vetted by the EPA, and the EPA came back in writing and said no case to answer. So claims about that sort of material being illegal or uncontrolled are absolutely wrong. Other complaints about dust being emitted and noise being emitted, The purpose of constructing the screening mounds is to prevent dust from other works travelling to the site and to reduce the decibels of noise generation. If we were to go to VCAT and the gentleman who presented material that he claims was deposited on his roof, the first thing our legal counsel would ask is, okay, to verify that that's recent, give us a copy of your recent report prior to Earth Lodge Mining starting work on site, stating that the gutters and the roof was clean and your tanks were clean. It's great to be able to supply material and say it's only happened in the last 6 months. There's no proof of that. I'm here to answer any questions that anyone might have regarding what's been said this evening, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Keogh.
With the paperwork that you've got for the clean fill, what sort of supervision did you have? How can you satisfy me that every truckload was accompanied by a piece of paper?
Every truckload is not accompanied by a piece of paper. What happens is a client that Earth Lodge Mining or what Starbuck Group transports soils for, when they want to get rid of it at the cheapest rate, which is clean fill rate, they engage an independent geologist and a soil laboratory to come and take samples of that soil, and that laboratory provides the clean fill samples of that, the clean fill reports for that material long before Earth Lodge Mining even sees it. Once that's clean fill certificate or geologist reports are provided, then the client contacts Starbuck Group or Earth Lodge Mining and say, okay, here's the certificates, here's the 10,000 or 5,000 or 3,000 cubic metres that certificate relates to, give me a price to take it away. That's the only control we have, is that our clients have had to do that, and they're vetted by the EPA and municipal councils whose municipality they're working in.
Supplementary question, please, Mr Mayor. How can I be assured that all the loads that you had have come from a site that's been approved? Like, how would I know that there could have been truckloads come from site A that's been approved, and there could be other loads that have come from site B that have not been approved by the EPA? There's no paperwork. How would I know?
We don't import material that doesn't have a clean fill certificate or a geologist report meeting the EPA guidelines. Simply don't bring it in.
How can I be assured that that happens? How would I know? I don't know where the truck come from, whether it come from site A or site B.
Well, you're guaranteed that it's suitable material by the fact that we maintain the records that the EPA requires us to. Earth Lodge Mining and the Starbuck do not take material from other trucking companies. It only comes in their own trucks. And I can tell you that the penalties for transporting undocumented material or unclean fill are substantial, not worth the risk.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
I still have problems if each load hasn't got the piece of paper. I can't. It could have come from anywhere. It might not have come from your side. It could have come from a number of places.
We don't take material from anywhere that we don't have documented, and our records are available and vetted by the EPA or anybody else who's got the authority to do so. They're open for that purpose, not for people like you and I. That's not what I do. But I can tell you that they will not transport material they can't guarantee is clean. It's not worth the risk. They don't take material from anybody. It only comes in their own trucks, from their own sites, from their own clients.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, I think what you're saying is that we haven't got paperwork accompanying every load, but you can be assured that we're doing it in a correct way. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is correct. You can be assured.
Which I find I would like to see a piece of paper on every load.
I'm
Just
sorry, I
issued-
missed that.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Holly, for your presentation. I understand why bunds are put around quarries and mines. I've actually seen them in the past. Most of the ones that I've ever seen, they actually use the overburden from the site to build the bunds. Now, this particular case, you're bringing in external material to build bunds. It could sort of be suggested that basically this is a landfill for clean fill. So I'm just...
Yeah, people would see that.
I'm just like, of other quarries and that I have seen, they usually, and I don't know what the depth of overburn to clay, it's probably considerable, and that's what usually happens. They sort of, as I say, use the overburden material to build the bunds and vegetate them. I've seen quarries like that, and they're quite successful because they vegetate them and screening, but more so the bunds are there to reduce noise, more so it's on a neighbouring activity. So I guess the question is, it's sort of a question mark, is this really just a landfill for clean fill?
It has assisted Earth Lodge Mining's needs. Good question, but can I tell you that Earth Lodge Mining submitted an application to Council in February of this year about rehabilitation works and a site access off Davison's Lane and a number of activities, and we received information from the Council saying because it was rehabilitation work and construction of bunds, protecting the environment, protecting the groundwater flow off the site, is classed as rehabilitation. So we were advised that no permit was required for rehabilitation work. On the understanding that that was the case, we went ahead and, initially, I left out too, we were advised after meeting on site with personnel from Earth Resources that we were not to do anything, any activity at all within the original licensed mining area. For whatever we wanted to do on site, we weren't allowed to cross that boundary into the original licensed mining area. So in response to that, in wanting to tidy up the property and to rehabilitate as possible, we had the availability of clean fill, which had clean fill certificates and geologist reports. So we thought, right, no permit required. We construct our screening bunds with that material while we go through the process of whatever licensing we're applying for with Earth Resources. That's the reason that came about. And I understand people's concept that it's a clean fill dump. If Earth Lodge Mining was to, or Starbuck Group were to operate a clean fill disposal site, that wouldn't be ideal because the area to dispose of clean fill material is not worth the investment in terms of planning and permitting, provision of equipment, traffic control. The site's far too small for that. It would be unprofitable.
Councillor Tatchell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm sorry about the voice. All right, you've had a bit to say. And I just want to put this to you, because this is in the report. Sorry, you're going to have to excuse me. Large volumes of soil began arriving at the site and are not directly related to the rehabilitation of the former quarry. The earthworks were concentrated around the property boundaries. Keep in mind the property boundaries, right? So we weren't covering dust, we weren't covering K Holland, we're building bunds, right? So just keep things in perspective. The earthworks were concentrated around the boundaries. These earthworks were deemed to be to exceed the definition of rehabilitation and did not accord with the approved rehabilitation plan. Now, that's what brought it here. That's how we ended up here. Now, just before we talk about the soil that came in, I owned a prescribed waste company for 10 years. So I'm well aware of the process, and you would have an audit report, Starbucks would have one, and that would have been available to council, I assume.
We've already supplied them to Council. Council supplied them to the EPA.
It should be in the report.
Yeah.
Realistically, it should be in the report. That would have avoided that question.
Correct.
And there seems to be a lot of things that weren't done until all of a sudden there was an issue with that paragraph where the reports came in. So we'll keep asking, if you don't mind, Mr Mayor. The other report that came in, that the works were started on Davison's Lane prior to the permit being issued. Is that correct?
because we were told a permit was not required? Yes, it's
This is a
correct.
yes or no one.
Yes, it's correct.
You can get us,
Sorry.
You're a very good orator, and I understand that, but we're trying to get to the bottom of it. That's what we're trying to do. So that's a yes or no. So it was started, but now we have a permit, is that correct? So that's good.
That's a yes.
Yes, good. I just want to make sure, because as you started this, we don't want any mistruths or we don't want anything twisted or bent. We're going to play this thing straight down the line. That was what you wanted to do, and that's what I want to do.
Can I tell you, council, I wouldn't like to discuss this over a beer in a pub because you'd win hands down.
I don't think so. Been a long time since I had a beer. I was no good when I was on it, I can tell you. But anyhow, so prior to the stop work order was issued, the applicant advised it was 34,000 cubic metres. So I can assume, and we've got Starbucks up the back, that you've got an audit trail for 34,000 cubic metres. That'll make my learned friend here ecstatic. He'll be very pleased because he tried very hard to ask that question.
We do have an audit trail, yes.
That's the important part. You also have, what I assume you have a permit in to the mines to pursue a licence of KL, is that correct?
We are negotiating with Earth Resources at the moment.
Yes.
Initially, we had incorrect advice from a company that we engaged to assist us to get a mining licence.
Correct, yes.
Since that time, we found out through dealing with Earth Resources that a mining licence is not what is required. The sole intent of that site is to remove clay for brick-making purposes, nothing else. And Earth Resources have advised Earth Lodge Mining that all we need is a work authority, which is exactly what was held by the previous owner.
But we do understand being a good corporate citizen is making sure we do it,
Yep.
not affect our neighbours and get everyone upset and get a room full of people that aren't happy. We all know that. You've been in the business a long time. You would understand that. So, moving right along. So this all became about by rehabilitation of the site. It got pulled up. We built a road we shouldn't have. We got a permit. So we got that bit under control. We got an order that says the 34,000 is covered in terms of any degradation or we made any contamination. That's covered. We still haven't discovered, this is an earthworks permit. But the burning question here is, why would you build the bunds if you're rehabilitating the ground that the K-Holland came out of? Because it doesn't appear any of that 34,000 tonnes was actually there to cover clay. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
Look, I can't quote you text directly, but you would have received another notification that Earth Lodge Mining sent council earlier this morning explaining...
I haven't got that, I can assure you.
No, I'm sorry. Explaining that...
Have you got a copy of that on you? Sorry? Have you got a copy of that? And you're going to speak next, aren't you? So when you come up next, I may ask for that copy.
Yeah, no worries.
Right. You got a copy there, that's all right. Please, if we can, I think we're just trying to get to the bottom of this. I
understand. I'm glad you are.
Yes, that's exactly what, we've got a copy of it.
You've got it, good.
With respect.
Now
to-
you've got two.
There we go, two. Just what I needed. So, more paperwork. All right, I'm going to just ask you a very simple question, and this is, I've got two issues. One is, this has really upset the neighbours. But the question, what is your intent with the site? I want to know the intent, not what might happen, not the rehabilitation. What is the actual intent?
To sell clay.
Right, that's all, just as long as we know that. Thank you, Mr.
Simple as that.
Thank you. You've been very good. Thank you. Whatever.
Thank you for putting up with me.
A quick question. Considering the property is at a higher point on an extreme weather day, why should the properties at the lower point suffer from that higher point? And especially all the fuel that you're planning to take into the area on an extreme day, that's all going to end up on their property.
I'm sorry, I have a hearing problem and it's not with volume. I can hear everybody, but I can't necessarily understand. Could you repeat, please?
So we're talking about considering the property is at a higher point on an extreme weather day.
Yes.
We're talking about rain and that. Why should the people at the lower point suffer with all that soil that's been brought in that all runs down onto their property? What's being done to
Because
solve
of
that issue?
difficulty in dealing with the neighbours on Davison's Lane. Because of the difficulty of dealing with the neighbours on Davison's Lane, initially we tried to keep away from their property while we went through the process of getting all our permits in place. And as Tino has claimed, there has been sediment transfer on the property just above his land on the south side because we would now stop from building the screening mounds we planned to build, which would have diverted that sediment transfer away from his property. In response to that, and also in response to a communication from the EPA, we went in there and put some A-bale barriers to try and stop the transfer of sediment while we went through the process of getting permission to build the bunds, which will control it forever.
Sorry.
Sometimes you've got to quit when we're in front. But I have a question for officers, Mr Mayor, because we've got some recommendations here. And my concern is that there is a permit in place, an application for a permit in place. And my concern would be that, and I know there's a question for the officers, is this, that should we abide by the recommendations, turn into motion, and the permit is then permitted by the mining and resources, are we going to be compromised by the barriers that we're putting in place now, or do they need to be rethought in terms of, because once they're in place, is that going to be a problem going forward should the permit come through for the residents? That's my question. I just don't want to hamstring us on this. What is it, the unintended consequences, as Councillor Sullivan calls them? Yes.
So through the chair, if you look at, let's say the third application, which is a clay extraction, let's say they did not get the screen mounds, the clay extraction application could consider other things such as screen mounds if it was directly linked. So for example, they may say we need a screen mount in this location for a noise attenuation, and they'd have to demonstrate that through a noise report. Or if it's a visual amenity, they'd have to do sight lines to show we're putting a mount in this location to reduce a visual impact to a certain property beyond that. So you could link both applications together, but at this point in time, we're only dealing with separate applications.
I just want to make sure that if these were put through, that we don't hamstring ourselves, that we put through a precedent in terms of if it was ever questioned or tested, that the council once agreed not to do these, so that if a permit went through, that we didn't have to put them back, because we don't have any control over that mining permit. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't. Have we got to get in a jail-free card should this fall over?
I would say through the chair, I would say yes, we have, because that third application has been lodged at a very similar point in time. So depending on how that application pans out, if it does get approved, that third application, then that may consider things such as I said, screen mounts.
I'm just trying to protect both parties, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Hollier. Councillor Tatchell touched on one of the questions I was going to ask, but I suppose you've been very emphatic that, you talked about certificates and you always make sure of the compliance. So it still amazed me then the part of the earthworks had already been undertaken on site without planning approval. And I know you answered Councillor Tatchell on that, but I suppose you've gone to great lengths to say you do everything by the book, but those earthworks initially were done without planning approval and the stop work was issued. I have read your submission that came in today, so thank you for that. I suppose, if I may, I just want to quote a submission written by Ian McGee, who is President for the Alliance for Responsible Mining Regulation, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. He wrote, "We reinforce that works on an unregulated quarry along with the illegal dumping of fill, which could have included material from contaminated sites, had occurred at this property until the council stop work order was issued. We agree with the planning officer's report that the proposal now before council does not satisfy planning provisions and should be rejected. ARMR proposed that the path forward should include a site assessment for contaminated material by an EPA approved order, and depending on the audit, there may be a requirement for proponents to recover material from the site." He believes, in wrapping up, paraphrasing here, as such, this is a mining application and council should refer the proponent to the Office of Resource Regulation within DECA.
Okay, Mr McGee is working from information supplied by objectors. So with respect, it's coloured with their perception of what's happening, not necessarily what is actually happening. Earth Lodge Mining has been fully compliant and fully supportive of information to council. Every time we've been asked a question, we've supplied an answer to the best of our ability, and we've had exactly the same process with Earth Resources and with the EPA. We've not hidden anything, we're not trying to deceive anyone or change the actual intent. And I made the comment a minute ago, the purpose of the property, of the business to be established is simply to sell clay. Now, in order to preserve what amenity the residents of Davison's Lane might have, we've been advised by Earth Resources, rather when they visited the site, that we should be building screening mounds there. And there's valid reasons why that should happen. Claims by Mr McGee don't necessarily relate to what's happening at Glenmore Road.
Can I continue? Yep. Actually, I'll go back a question. I was going to ask these in order, but I'll ask this question. It was mentioned earlier, the site may actually be for sale. Is that correct? The site may be for sale?
No, well, if it is, it's news to me.
Okay, so we can take your word, because I note in the report it says, without an active quarry or extraction of a natural resource, large-scale earthwork serves no benefit to the site or surrounds. So the way I read that is if it's not going to be a quarry or extraction, as Councillor Sullivan pointed out, your question, its only reasonable use could be fill. But if it's not being sold, that answers that. I live out in Darley, and I live close to Hanson's Quarry, which I'm sure you're aware of. And I know where the wind blows, how much dust goes up over those hills, or depending on which way it's blowing. It can go up over the hills towards Sunbury, Merrimew, or can come into Darley. So I have some sympathy for some of the objectors about saying getting dust on their roof and into their water flow. You did not seem to place a lot of relevance on that concern. I do, I've seen it, because dust blows onto my house from Hanson's Quarry. So would that not bother you if your sole source of water was tank water?
There is no source of water other than two old dams which have been constructed on the site before Earth Lodge bought it. So in order to supply water for activities, they have an arrangement with the local transporter and two large, I think amounting to about 22,000 litres, two large tanks on site, and that contractor keeps those two tanks full, and Earth Lodge Mining have their own water truck equipped with sprays on site, and they draw their water from those two tanks as they need it.
Okay, and my last question, Mr Mayor. I go to Geelong 3 days a week for work, and in doing so I drive past the Barwon prison. When I see the proposal to put 3 metre walls 17 metres from someone's front door, I liken it to living in a prison. I would not want to walk out my door and go, wow. I wouldn't want to live there. Would you want to live there with 3 metre walls 17 metres from your front door?
Can I answer your question succinctly? The site has been zoned special use for a long time. Now, let me answer your question. It's been zoned special use for a long time, and it's had mining rights provided by Crown grant since 1908. That was long before the two residences on Davison's Lane were built. When those two residences were built, the people who built the houses, not necessarily the current owners, but the people who built the houses would have had that view that's existing today. So if they bought that land and built those houses with that view and with the hill and the potential for water runoff and everything else that goes with it, it was suitable to them. That's not me.
So your response is bad luck, effectively?
Bad luck. It was with their full knowledge. It would have been explained on the Section 32.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question. It's not necessarily the gentleman, but given the officers flagged that there is another application for a mining application pending or coming to council, I'm not quite sure how far advanced that is, should this matter be actually read in conjunction or dealt with in conjunction with that? So it's just a question. I know that this is the application before us, but should they actually be considered together? Thank you.
So through the chair, that would be an ideal situation to have all applications assessed concurrently. The kaolin extraction application only came in a few weeks ago, so that was prior to this report being prepared.
Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll take on board what Councillor Simon said. That's why I foreshadowed that there may be a motion required. But I will ask a question anyway. In your estimate, I know you're experienced man in this business, the yield from the possibility of selling clay out of that particular mine, in dollar terms, what was the estimate that was put towards the mining or potential mining licence?
That's a long question. It
Well,
relates
it may well
entirely...
be, but in the documents that have been provided.
Yes, but you've answered it different to what's been provided.
Well,
It
would
relates to...
Would you like me to ask it the way you've said it?
It relates entirely to what licensing Earth Lodge mining can achieve from Earth Resources. Now, they're interested in getting the largest area possible, removing more of the hill than has actually been attempted, and that means that there's far more Earth Resource there. Now, as long as they make their $30 million worth of value, which there is there present at the moment...
That's the answer. That's all I need.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
I apologise for wasting your time.
No, it's all right. What did I tell you before? Yeah, sometimes you've got to quit while you're in front. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keogh.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To the applicant, have you got a long-term customer for the kaolinite that you've got there?
A long-term rehabilitation plan?
No, a long-term customer for acceptance of the kaolinite.
No, the power line is not an issue for...
Hang on. No. Sorry. You're going to get your chance in a minute. Customer. Yeah. He can repeat the question.
My wife says I'm deaf when I want to be deaf, but
Sorry,
unfortunately I didn't get that, I'm sorry.
Have you got a long-term customer for the existing kaolinite that you've got in the deposit?
Okay, Jim will answer that better than me, but I can tell you he's already entertained or taken out sales tactics, and he knows who he can sell the clay to. That's not part of my purview.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you for indulging me.
Councillors, Aurelia Piru as in writing.
Oh, mine's in writing.
In writing in front of you. And now we'll move along to James Starbuck.
Firstly, thank you very much for having me, everyone here. I understand it's a long night and I understand that you've had a long day also, and I appreciate you listening. This site was first zoned, permitted, licensed as mining in 1908. It has since had 7 different licenses and permits to mine. It has never been rehabilitated. There is a 30-metre tall cliff visible from both houses on Davison's Lane that has never been rehabilitated. It is unsafe, which no one has brought up. It's got a large rock face exposed that no one's talking about the fact that that could fall down. No one's talking about the fact that it is not fenced off. And a large part of what has been objected to tonight is the fact that there is surface runoff and dust, and the main way to have dust and surface runoff be controlled is bund walls at quarries. The reason this permit has been put forward is so that we can do away with some of the concerns of our neighbours. They put forward concerns of dust. They put forward sediment runoff down the hill. They had, numerous complaints to council, to which I am happy to answer all questions about clean fill, happy to answer all questions about EPA guidelines, our chain of custody, chain of responsibility in terms of importing that clean fill, our docket process, our load counting process, and anything else. So please feel free to ask me any questions about that. But the bund walls and the reason why the importation of fill was being used to construct them was so that we could construct them earlier for the neighbours to do away with some of their concerns. We are unable to dig out the kaolin at the moment to sell for brickclay, which I am also happy to go through all customers, all pricing, their requirement for the clay as well. And I would like to then, I'll just start to read from this submission because I understand that some of you might not have had a chance to read from it today, that addresses all concerns from our end, of course. And I'm also happy to go through and talk about what it would be like to live across the road from a prison and how we can make it.
We'll stick to the story.
Okay, we'll stick to the script then. The application seeks approval for construction of engineered earthen perimeter bund walls around a historic, so 115-year-old is when it first started to be mined, unrehabilitated, it has never been looked after, kaolin mine pit. The works are urgently required to do away with some of the concerns that you've heard here tonight, because what will you do if you are starting to get some complaints about the runoff? Are you going to ring me up?
We understand all that. We understand all that.
For public safety, dust suppression, sediment runoff, management and progressive stabilisation of a legacy site that has remained unsafe and environmentally degraded for decades. The proposed bunds do not authorise or facilitate the recommencement of extractive industry without authority. Ancillary stabilisation and risk mitigation works expressly contemplated by both the planning scheme and the 1990 MRSDA are supported by a wide body of expert geotechnical and hydrological evidence, will submit net community benefit and environmental improvement with negligible off-site impacts, and the proposed perimeter bunds directly protect and restore the declared special water supply catchment by intercepting sediment-laden runoff, stabilising highly erodible slopes and enabling rapid vegetation, delivering a permanent and measurable improvement in downstream water quality. So there was 4 main objections from the council that were put forward to us yesterday, or 2 days ago, sorry, of why this permit is recommended to be refused. And we have addressed each one of them in this document here, so that I can maybe hurry this along, because I understand, like I said, you've all had a long night. Has everyone read this? Yeah. And did everyone receive a copy?
Actually, you've actually only got 3 minutes, so I will encourage you to hurry up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll keep on going along, Mr Mayor. I apologise.
No worries.
Although the primary purpose of Schedule 1 of Clause 3701 Special Use Zone relates to the use of land for coal mining, Planning Practice Note 3, which is specific to Special Use Zone, issued under the Planning and Environment Act 1987, allows flexibility to accommodate various land uses. VCAT and the Supreme Court have repeatedly confirmed that certain rehabilitation and risk mitigation tasks, which is very important, risk mitigation tasks on legacy quarry sites can be approved under the Planning and Environment Act, even when no current work authority exists. The proposed perimeter bunding is essential engineering and land protection measure that will stabilise highly erodible slopes, intercept and treat virtually all sediment runoff. So all sediment runoff.
I think we've got all this now.
And the last but not least, do you want me to finish up, Mr Mayor, and I can start with, I think I might have a lot of
If it's something that's different from what you've been saying. Otherwise, I go straight to questions.
I've got 4 pages of water, far from being an imposition.
All right, councillors, we'll go to questions. Councillor Bingham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I've sat through a lot of DACs, and a lot of concerns could have easily been mitigated right on if an applicant just simply walked up to the neighbours or the objectors and talked it out? Have you ever had those conversations?
I would absolutely relish the opportunity to. I have tried to reach out on numerous occasions. I have spoken to them, tried to letterbox drop. I have sent Alan Hollier around there on multiple occasions to have a talk through any of their concerns, and we have been unable to do so. I would love to have that immediately after today, or I can make time to go at any moment of their choosing.
Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Starbuck, for your presentation. The application that you obviously put into Earth Resources, or going to put in, I'm assuming that you're going through that process for a works authority, will it actually cover the extent of the ownership that's there, or will it be sort of a reactivation of an earlier works approval that may not necessarily be the full extent of the site? So I suppose I'm just getting that clear in my head, if that's okay.
So the first step of the Earth Resources Work Authority application is actually to put forward a planning permit to council, which we have done.
Yep.
After that, we are to make a work plan, and in that work plan, we will then designate which zones that we will be extracting material from and put that forward to Earth Resources. So we don't actually currently have that information, but I'm happy to work with people to make sure it's outside of any buffer zones or anything else like that.
Look, we have a plan on page 35 of our report which shows the extent of the SUZ1 zone, is highlighted in red. So, yeah, that's right. So will the approval that you're seeking from Earth Resources cover the whole of that site?
No, it is unable to, because there is some LSIOs, a land inundation overlay. There is a heritage management overlay, which we have engaged with with a RAP plan, I can't remember the exact words, but we have engaged with the relevant people about that. And so we are limited in where we are able to extract the clay from.
Okay. So given the amount of work you've done thus far, you must be fairly confident that you will get that works approved from Earth Resources. Is that a fair comment or not?
If anyone stood at the bottom of that hill and looked up, it is, and the fact that it has been left unrehabilitated for so long, they have created a cliff that is unsafe, and the answer is yes.
I think you've made that quite clear, that there hasn't been any rehabilitation undertaken, I think, since you said about 1900 something or other.
Yep.
But my question is that, you know, to do the amount of work that you've done thus far, and this is what the permit is tonight, being to talk about the bunds, you must be confident, or reasonably confident. I mean, it's a business decision of yours quite clearly.
Yeah, I've invested millions of dollars in this, and I believe that it is a fantastic thing. I've got customers who are incredibly interested in it. It's going to overall improve that property immensely by the time I finish with it, because of the fact that it has been left in such a degraded state for so long.
I appreciate that. No, there is a photo here on page 36 of the report which does sort of it reinforces what you've said about.
So that is from the low area looking up. If you were to go there, that hill is 2 to 3 times larger if you're standing at the bottom of it.
So would you be supportive of having this application for the bund dealt with as part of your application for the extraction of the clay?
I've sat here tonight and heard that sediment runoff and dust is a huge problem for the neighbours.
Yeah.
And so...
if you can, just stick to the question.
What was...
question.
So what I was actually asking, would you be amenable to have this application assessed at the same time as the application that clearly has come into council in the last few weeks for the extraction of the clay?
I've waited over 6 months. We've had 2 different nights for earth bunds only. I really struggle to see that it will be done in any sort of reasonable time frame, and I think that earth bunds are a fantastic thing for the neighbours. And so I think that if we were to look at it, and if I could get some sort of, confidence that it would be looked at and presented back to us, because the earth it's a big process to go from a planning application to remove kaolin clay, or clay in general, it doesn't have to be kaolin, to then have an active work authority. There's a lot of steps, and that what happens if there's more sediment, and I'm starting to... You understand what I'm saying, because I have done that and I saw the mayor's face. So, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Learned a lot about mining tonight, and thank you. I suppose you mentioned just then when you said there is a lot of steps. So, you know, you weren't overly confident that that could be done quickly, and you said you've obviously invested heavily in it to date. In your written submission at the back, you wrote that we anticipate that any future planning permit applications shall be made direct to the minister.
Yep.
Under the significant economic development clauses of Victorian planning schemes, in the estimated resource to be extracted exceed 30 million. And you mentioned above that objections to the proposal do not affect the established legal rights governing the land use and lack planning merit. So I suppose, please pardon my ignorance, but if you go down that path, do you still have to do those extra steps? Are they still required?
It will make an easier pathway to be able to get the work authority. The ERR regulation will still be placed over the top, and we will still have to jump through their hoops. However, it is a different pathway to navigate the planning permit and therefore the council's ability to do that, because this clay is needed to construct the homes. We have a commitment for purchase of this clay. I'm happy to talk about any sort of permit conditions that you guys need in terms of what sort of buffer zones, where the bunds go, the height, the depth and everything else like that as well. So I'm very amenable to do it, but also at the same time I have a property there that has rights itself.
Yeah, no, I was, you clarified it because I suppose I was specifically more interested in whether it's still required the ERR.
The ERR is definitely clarified. Sorry for the long answer.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Mr Starbuck. For me, I'm very concerned about the environment. The current mounds you've put at the front of the property so far are a concern for me. They're in the paper on page 35, the height, and I've been down Glenmore Road where there was dust blowing over. I couldn't see. I had to stop. So my concern is for the rest of the
From which
property.
quarry? My quarry or the one directly across the road, which is the Hind Bros, which is
It was clearly coming
from my direction?
from-
Yes?
Yes.
That was it
Mounds you put there already.
coming from the mounds?
Can I finish my question?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So the mounds that you're intending to put to purposely help the neighbours, I'm concerned the amount of dust that's then going to occur. So big environmental problem I can see with all the boundary mounds.
Yep.
So how do you fix that?
They're not finished. They need to be vegetated. And so we plant native vegetation along the entirety of that mound so that there is no dust. And any dust that is produced from the quarry is blocked or sent upwards, so to protect the neighbours. So we are going to vegetate the mounds with native vegetation and grasses so that we are stopping that dust that you're concerned about.
Sorry, can I have a
Yeah.
subsequent question then? So you're saying the vegetation, if there's dust, it will go up. Is that what you're saying?
No, no.
Vegetation goes up.
No, the vegetation goes along the boundary, and any dust that comes from the existing quarry face that is there, that we did not dig, that has been unrehabilitated, which I keep saying, will either hit the back of it or it will hopefully hit the back and then settle on top of the bund. That's what they're built for. That's what they are for, to build them.
I've got a subsequent question. How long does it take for that vegetation to be effective?
It's a very good question. I don't think very long, depending on how we do it. We could mulch it, we could geo-grid it. There are multiple options here. I think that we would have already been finished if a stop works order wasn't put on it, which has made more dust.
We'll leave it there.
Yep.
Finish. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Tatchell.
Preempt a deferral based on what Councillor Sullivan suggested, that both permits be presented as one to get a realistic idea. I'd also like, as part of that, to, there's not a copy of there's a lot of quotes within this that are not substantiated in terms of amounts, Russell, all that sort of stuff. So I'll just give you a preamble. I think we need to do in my view, there needs to be, it may fail, we may have to go back to square one, but I'm proposing a motion to defer this item until the other item or the other application comes in at the same time to avoid being hamstrung by any decision made tonight.
So we'll clarify
It's a deferral.
Yeah, a deferral. Councillor Bingham?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Question of the applicant. So just in terms of these...
Point of order, I've just put a motion forward. You can ask a question about the motion.
I haven't finished asking questions.
Oh, yeah, but I've brought a motion to the table, which I can at any time. I foreshadowed it.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that has to be dealt with first, I think.
Through the chair, Councillor Tatchell, are you foreshadowing a motion?
I foreshadowed earlier.
Or are you moving a motion?
I did. I just moved a motion to defer this item until such time as the other application came in. What I am waiting for is a second
just clarifying.
available.
Thank you.
Otherwise, it sits on the table.
Okay, so we'll excuse the speaker. Is it seconded? Councillor Sullivan? All those in favour?
No, we don't. See if someone objects.
Anyone against?
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
That's okay. No one's against? You're against? Okay. Councillor Tatchell?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. I'm not going to prolong into this debate. I mean, what I'm saying, we've sat here and tried to reconstruct something. As part of that discussion, we've come up with the fact that there's another piece of this jigsaw missing that's still to come in a couple of weeks. There is a lot of quotations within this, reports that have been laid on the table that haven't been substantiated or justified, so there's missing information, so it's going to require another briefing. I am concerned that if we stick to the recommendation that we may cause ourselves a problem going forward when the other application comes through, and I am reluctant to do that. I think both things do go together, like salt and pepper. So from my perspective, I want to protect the residents on this. I mean, I think I'm not sympathetic to the applicant on the basis that it's retrospective, but I am sympathetic to understanding what the second application is. And I think it's very important that those things are brought to the table so that we can have a reasonable, sensible and informed conversation about this, because there have been a lot of things been opened up tonight that are unsubstantiated, and I think it'd be unfair to be making a decision at this very time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ward?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I suppose I'm only voting against it because, look, I think at the end of the day, whether this goes to the minister or it's resolved here, at the end of the day, it's going to require a mining licence. So we're here today to, again, I'm repeating myself from the second item on the agenda, we're here to vote on the notice and motion in front of us, and I fully endorse the officer's recommendation, and I generally wish the applicant well. If he wishes to go down and apply for a mining licence, then that would be understandable. So I would foreshadow, I'm against the deferral, and I would foreshadow that we go back to the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan?
Mr Mayor, I think as we've sat here this evening and heard from all the presenters, I think we've been able to glean a lot of information that has allowed us now to sort of consider that. But the critical thing, as I see it, is that there is a subsequent application in for a planning permit for a clay extraction, which I think dovetails into this current application because they do go hand in glove. I think we have to understand that there's not just this or that, although this is what's triggered this tonight, I appreciate this. But the other thing, now that we're aware of that, I think it would be prudent to sort of wait until that comes and have it all done holistically rather than piecemeal, which is what we sort of have what has occurred, and understand why it's occurred, because that was the application, but this other bit of information, and I think it would be important to sort of deal with them together and have one decision made that covers all those issues rather than sort of having a bit here and a bit there, because I understand where my colleague Councillor Tatchell is coming from, that if we sort of go with what the recommendation is here and the other thing comes before, we're going to have to almost rescind that motion to go forward. So I think it would be better, and I'd urge my councillor colleagues to go with that and defer it until that is the case. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Bingham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I've been a councillor for 5 years. We've never had a meeting like this where my questions are silent. So I'm going to object, vote against the deferral.
Yeah.
But if you actually allow me my right to ask a question, I'll happily support Councillor Tatchell's deferral. So can I ask my question of the applicant, Mr Mayor?
I think we're debating this now.
It's not how we run things, but anyways, I object. Thanks.
Yep.
A question in the middle of the debate, so.
Yeah.
Ask the question, councillor.
That's okay.
But keep it relevant.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell.
It should be the mayor, sorry, it's not my job. So,
Okay. In terms of your design of the buns, I'm interested to know, is there a standard design, a standard practice, or have you just made up these designs?
I'd say that there's industry accepted ways to build them, but there is not a standard, no, so it's not an Australian standard of how to build buns, but I am more than happy to change it if you guys have any standard that you have.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else want to speak for or against the deferral? It's up to you, Paul. Over to you. Closing.
thanks, Mr Mayor. There's good reasoning to do this. And it's never good practice to make a decision when you don't have all the information on the table. And ultimately what has come out tonight is there is a secondary application that needs to be dealt with, in my view, and I'm hoping the other council will follow that. In order to consider good process, we need to get all of the information we possibly can and not make a decision knowing full well that there's other information that's not available. So it's we're incumbent to do that. So I implore councillors to defer this, and if not, we'll go to Councillor Ward's motion. Thank you.
So we've got a mover and a seconder to that deferral motion. All those in favour of deferring? Pass. Okay, carried. Thank you.
To be about paid to explain to the...
Deferred to come back at a later date, once we have all the information in front of us.
Round 3.
With the other application.
Thank you very much for your time. I very
Thank
much
you.
appreciate it. It's 8:30. I think everyone almost needs
No
to go
worries.
home.
Thank you. All right, councillors. Moving along, is there any other councillors, any other business? Mr. Councillor Sullivan.
Mr Mayor, we're going on overtime now and I haven't got the business. Thank you.
Councillor Keogh.
Mr Mayor, I fully agree with my colleague, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Councillor Tatchell.
Horse. So I've had enough.
Councillor Minari.
Nothing, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Bingham.
Nothing, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Berry.
Nothing, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Freeman.
Nothing, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Ward.
Officers on the fantastic reports they lodged this evening, Mr Mayor. I think we were given plenty of opportunities to ask questions in the lead up, and commend the officers on the information they provided. Thank you.
Thank you. The date for the next meeting will be Wednesday, 18th of February 2026, and I now declare the meeting closed.